All right. I think this is working all right. I can see my halo working. I don't know if I'm going to get any viewers. I'm going to wait to see if some viewers show up. Make sure my audio is working fine. Actually, there's a way I can test myself. Let me go to here. Yep, that's working. Actually, sounds pretty good. May need to kick up my mic volume just a little bit. I'm using using my wireless earbuds. I'll turn that. Okay, give that a shot. Everything should be good to go. All right. Let's see if anyone shows up. It's 3:49 in the morning my time. And this is going to be, this is a short video. This is Sam Shamoun. Now, I don't know how many people are actually familiar with this particular individual. I don't think I've ever really covered anything from Sam Shamoun. He is a evangelical Christian. He does a lot of stuff on YouTube. I know him, and I think the first time I ever heard of Sam Shamoun was through Praise the I Am. They've had their disagreements, but that's where I first heard about Sam Shamoun. And he's another evangelical Christian on YouTube. So there's nothing really to deep dive into, but I found this one. I started listening to this one just real quickly when it popped up on my feed. And just from the start of it, I was just like, well, this might be interesting to look at. So I'm going to, hopefully I get some people to show up. But then again, it is very early on a Saturday morning, but I'm at work. It's a quiet night at work. I'm doing my job, which is just basically monitoring quite a bit of cameras and doing gate access. So figured I would occupy some of my time by doing this. I'll give this a shot. I hope this is working all right. Like I said, using my Soundcore earbuds, so sometimes they work okay, sometimes not so much. So far, I haven't had any issues with them, knock wood, but we'll see.
In Deuteronomy 20, Moses is explained.
Yeah, so this, from what I can tell, this guy Albert comes in and he's talking about, he brings up Deuteronomy 20 to Sam Shamoun. That Sam Shamoun's right there on the left. It goes also by Halal Hogan. I don't know why.
Explaining laws for warfare or conduct for warfare. Yes. And he explains for the distant cities where Israel can offer them peace, and if they accept, they'll be slaves. Yes. Now, this style of slavery, is this the same as the one outlined in Exodus? So, for example, no?
Yeah, I already did a session on that, but I'm going to explain to you. If you read contextually, Israel's only allowed to conquer Canaan, right?
Now, this is interesting. This is an interesting take because he says they're only allowed to conquer Canaan. Now, yes, they were told to conquer the individuals in Canaan because Canaan is the promised land. That's not saying that they couldn't attack other people, right? Because obviously you have, in the Bible, you have the Midianites in Numbers 31, and you have the Amalekites who attacked, I think it's Exodus 17, where the Amalekites attack the Israelites. And then obviously quite a bit goes on. And then you get to 1 Samuel 15, and then you have Samuel being told by God to tell King Saul to kill all the Amalekites. So that's not conquering. That was to just basically kill them for some kind of, to go back after them for something that happened in the past.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, now Israel, listen to what I'm about to say. They were not given orders to expand throughout the world. It's not Islam or jihad. So if you listen and you pay attention, contextually, read the context, they can only conquer Canaan, right?
Yeah,
it doesn't. So here's the interesting thing. The context of Deuteronomy 20 doesn't say they can only conquer Canaan. So I went and I found, which is easy enough to look up. It's the rules of warfare. It's not a long chapter. It's Deuteronomy 20. And it's, when you go out to war against your enemies and see horses and chariots, an army larger than your own, do not fear them, for the Lord your God is with you, who brought you up from the land of Egypt. Before you engage in battle, the priest shall come forward and speak to the troops and shall say to them, Hear, O Israel, today you are drawing near to do battle against your enemies. Do not lose heart or be afraid or panic or be in dread of them, for it is God who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies, to give you victory. Then the officers shall address the troops, saying, Has anyone built a new house but not dedicated it? He should go back to his house, lest he die in battle, and another dedicate it. It's interesting because it says, do not fear, right? But by all means, make sure you get your home dedicated to you, because that could be problematic for your family. Probably due to the whole idea that if you had a home, you had your land, you had family, it has to be dedicated to you. It's established as yours. And then there's that idea that even as your family has the land, if for some reason they have to sell the land, the rules of the Jubilee apply. Basically, no matter what happens, on the 50th year, the land goes back. That's kind of what I'm seeing that as, but that's not important for this right now. Has anyone planted a vineyard but not yet enjoyed its fruits? He should go back to his house, lest he die in battle and another be first to enjoy its fruits. Has anyone become engaged to a woman but not yet married her? He should go back to his house, lest he die in battle and another marry her. The officers shall continue to address the troops, saying, Is anyone afraid or disheartened? Well, that's interesting, because God just said, don't be afraid. But already admitted that, yeah, some of you could die. He should go back to his house, or he might cause the heart of his comrades to melt like his own. When the officers have finished addressing the troops, then the commander shall take charge of them. Then it just says here, starts in verse 10, when you draw near to a town to fight against it, offer it terms of peace. If it accepts your terms of peace and surrenders to you, then all people in it shall serve you at forced labor. But if it does not accept your terms of peace and make war against you, then you shall besiege it. And when the Lord your God gives it into your hand, you shall put all its males to the sword. You may, however, take as your plunder the women, the children, livestock, and everything else in town, all its spoil. You may enjoy the spoil of your enemies, which the Lord your God has given you. Thus you shall treat all the towns that are very far from you, which are not towns of these nations here. But as for the towns of these peoples that are the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance, you must not leave anything that breathes remain alive. Indeed, you shall annihilate them, the Hittites and the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, just as the Lord your God has commanded, so that they may not teach you to do all the abhorrent things that they do for their gods, and you thus sin against the Lord your God. If you besiege a town for a long time, making war against it in order to take it, you must not destroy its trees by wielding an axe against them. Although you may take food from them, you must not cut them down. And trees in the field, human beings, they should come under siege from you. I'm sorry, I misread that. Are trees in the field human beings that they should come under siege from you? You may destroy only the trees that you know do not produce food. You may cut them down for use in building siege works against the town that makes war with you until it falls. So I see nothing in Deuteronomy 20, unless there's some other spot where you can kind of derive some kind of context that they are not to conquer anyone else. Right? Because it says, when you draw near to a town to fight against it, offer it terms of peace. So they're drawing to a town to fight against it. Now you're going to offer it terms of peace. If it accepts the terms of peace and surrenders to you, then all people in it shall serve you at forced labor. But if it does not accept your terms of peace and makes war against you, then you shall besiege it. And then it goes into about killing all the males, taking the spoils. And then it says, thus you shall treat all the towns that are very far from you, which are not towns of these nations here. But as for the towns of these people that the Lord your God is giving you, and then it goes into basically the peoples that are under the ban. So there's nothing here saying that they couldn't take out other towns. That are far from them. And the ones that are very far from them, they could have them serve at forced labor. So I got Spooky here and Heat Shield. Cool. Hello.
Nearby pagans, yes.
Yeah, but not even nearby pagans. They're only supposed to conquer Canaan.
Okay, yeah.
No, it doesn't say that they can only. It says they could attack other areas. So I don't know how he missed that in Deuteronomy 20. It says specifically that they can do that with other cities that are far from them. But when it comes to the people of the land that the Israelites are going to be inheriting from God, those people they are to annihilate, leave none alive.
Got it.
The Canaanites, Canaan, the land of Canaan, right? Okay, now, this is assuming that if Israel gets attacked and they go to war, other nations...
No. I don't know why. I've heard other evangelical Christians do this. I don't know where they get that from.
Outside nations come in, like the Assyrians or the Babylonians and Egyptians, right?
Yes.
So
no, that's wrong, because when you read the text, it says, when you draw near to a town to fight against it, offer it terms of peace. So let's say it's the Assyrians or the Babylonians, and they're coming to attack the Israelites. If they want to fight, then the Israelites are just going to be like, okay, we're going to have to defend ourselves, right? But that's not what this is saying. In that situation, it doesn't sound like they would be the ones to be trying to offer peace if they believe if it's the Assyrians and the Babylonians coming to get them, wanting to attack them and overtake them. This is about when they draw near to a town to fight against it, then they offer terms of peace. And that was for the cities that are very far from them, not the ones of the individuals living in the land of Canaan.
So you go to war. You have no choice. You got to protect yourself. This is what it's talking about. Now,
no, they could go to war just fine on their own.
If you enslave them, the rules are different. They can be your perpetual slaves. Whereas if you read Exodus 21, from verse 1 down, Hebrews.
So see, that's interesting. He's basically saying that, yeah, they can have slaves. They can take these people as slaves, but there's a problem. They're not taking, they're taking everybody as slaves. As basically, what do they call that? Corvée labor. But if they fight them, so if they take the term of peace, everybody becomes slaves. Everybody becomes forced labor. But if they don't accept the terms of peace, then they are to besiege it and kill off all the males. and then they can take as plunder the women, the children, and the livestock. Either way, they're getting slaves. And this isn't obviously the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Pezerites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, or the Hittites, because they're not to take any of them. They are to be completely annihilated.
Hebrew servant is supposed to be released in the 7th year, unless he wants to sell himself to perpetual servitude, right?
Yes.
Now, why the difference? Now, I did a session on this. Now, the difference is, here's I'm going to show you the wisdom of God. If someone is willing to let God be God and see the wisdom in it, when you conquer pagans and you enslave them perpetually, that becomes a moral deterrent, meaning what? If you read Leviticus 18 and Leviticus 20, so guys, listen to this, because this is the second time this question brought up. I answered it, but word creates repetition. We need to hear something repetitively. You got to learn this. So when you conquered the pagans, if you read Leviticus 18 and 20, God tells you what the pagans were doing, like the Canaanites, the Egyptians. They would commit infanticide, sacrifice children to gods and goddesses, okay? Or Molech or Baal. They would commit bestiality, sleep with animals, incest, homosexuality, lesbianism, shedding innocent blood. When you enslave a people, then you prevent them from acting upon these immoral acts. In other words,
yeah, but if there's a problem here, if you're using them as corvée labor, then all of them are that way. They're all slaves. And again, if you kill them, if the city that the Israelites have approached does not take the terms of peace, then all the males die, and everybody becomes, the women and children become spoils of war.
it becomes a moral deterrent. You stop the evil from spreading, because now they can't do it anymore. They're under your control. So in one way, this is punishment for the pagans. So far with me?
I'm with you. I'm listening.
But here's where God's mercy comes in. That's why if you read scripture in its context, then you're going to see. So you conquer these pagans. You now prevent them from murder, from bloodshed, from bestiality, incest, all these vices. Now,
I don't know how so. Because if you're conquering them in the first sense, in the first part of Deuteronomy 20, and that's because they didn't accept the terms of peace, all the males are supposed to be killed. And then when it came to the other pagans, when it came to the conquering of all the Canaanites, they were to be completely annihilated. None left alive.
now you have lessened sin and wickedness in the world. However, if they convert, and I'm going to show you this from the scripture, if they decide to recant the gods and goddesses and live in obedience to Yahweh and worship Yahweh, then they have to be treated as an Israelite and given the same rights as an Israelite. So you can't keep them.
That's not what it says in Deuteronomy 20. It sounds like he's conflating basically the idea of like the neighbors, like neighboring nations, like the foreigners from outside coming in and then kind of, practicing the Jewish religion, getting themselves circumcised, circumcising their slaves so that they can participate in Jewish religious rituals and eat at Jewish festivals and stuff like that, the Hebrew festivals and stuff like that. That's what it sounds like. I'm not going to go back through Leviticus 18 and Leviticus 20. Maybe I'll do that later. But for right now, this is just kind of a quick, kind of my quick take on it. I think he's conflating some stuff here. He's like, I think he's taking that and he's saying, well, that applied even to these individuals here. No, not necessarily.
Them in perpetual servitude.
Because again, if the city if the Israelites were going to go to war with someone, then they offer terms of peace. If they accept the terms of peace, everybody becomes a slave. If they don't, then all the males are to be killed and the women and children are to be taken as spoils of war. Then when you have the Canaanites, they are to all be killed. None of them are going to be slaves at all. There won't be anyone left to be slaves.
Servitude. Now, where am I getting this from? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Leviticus 19, 33 or 34. So you see, it's
They say Leviticus 19.
so you can't keep them in perpetual servitude. Now, where am I getting this from? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Leviticus 19, 33 or 34.
Yeah, he is. When an alien resides with you in your land, you shall not oppress the alien. The alien who resides with you shall be to you as the native born among you. You shall love the alien as yourself, for you were aliens in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Yep, I was right. He's conflating their idea of treating their neighbors, treating neighbor basically tenant or these would be tushavs, gers, and tushavs. So like a tushav would be like a resident alien. But ger, I think ger and tushav is kind of the same. It doesn't matter. It's just there's this consideration to be given to the aliens that reside with them in the land. So in this case, it's referring to. It sounds like it's referring to like tenant farmers, to tushavs that live amongst them. That doesn't mean that they could not take them as slaves, though. That's Leviticus. Those individuals could become slaves to the Israelites. That's in Leviticus 25. Hey, Dr. Josh, this guy is an arrogant moron. Have you talked to this guy, Dr. Josh? Hold on 1 second. I gotta mute real quick. I got someone here. Be right back. All right. Like I said, I'm at work, so. Did he file for an extension? Anyway, I don't know what that. I don't know what that's. Maybe that's for taxes or something. Anyway.
So you see, it's win-win situation, right? Leviticus 19:30.
Well, it's not a win-win situation if it's a. Okay, someone didn't really read that carefully.
3:34.
When a foreigner sojourns with you in your land, you shall not do him wrong. The foreigner who dwells with you shall be to you as one born among you, and you shall love him as yourself.
Wow.
For you were foreigners in the land of Egypt.
Okay, now before you go on, Albert, you see how fair the God of the Old Testament is? If a foreigner who's not physically an Israelite lives among you, you are to treat him as if he's a native.
Yes, as a native, but that still doesn't mean that they couldn't become slaves, and that they couldn't sell themselves as slaves, or their kin to the Israelites and be permanent slaves. That's what's laid out in Leviticus 25, 44 through 46. Either way, I still don't. The whole thing with Deuteronomy 20, again, you don't have any males left over. If you take over the entire nation because they accepted terms of peace, then maybe I could see that, but I don't know how that would control slavery, or control their sin, unless he's implying that because they took over this city and made everybody forced labor, everybody their slave, then they all are basically forced into the Israelite religion so that they don't sin anymore. I'm not getting any of that from the text, but it doesn't sound like he's really read the text all that well, because it seems like from what he was saying was that even when the Israelites would be going to conquer the Canaanites, they would be taking the Canaanites as slaves. But that's not what Deuteronomy 20 says. It gives a list of those individual little nation states, Canaanites, the Hittites, and all them, as basically being under the order from God, that none of them survive, all of them be annihilated. So you wouldn't actually get any slaves from those individuals that the Israelites are conquering. They would be wiped out completely. So yeah, this guy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
Native Israelite, as if he's born an Israelite, and you are to love
But
him.
I did call it when he started bringing up Leviticus 18 and Leviticus 19. I'm like, I think he's going to go to the whole rule about, oh, the Israelites are supposed to treat neighbors, or treat these sojourners and these foreigners that reside amongst them as equal. So therefore they are equal. Not really. Being treated as equal doesn't necessarily make them inherently equal.
Love him as yourself. This is where the command comes. Love your neighbor as yourself. It comes from this command where God is telling the Israelites, love the foreigner, the Gentile.
I don't think so. Because if it was that case, yeah, that doesn't follow.
The one who's not ethnically a Jew, as you love yourself, because he's one of you if he worships me.
Okay, clarification. So if that
no, it didn't say anything about them necessarily having to worship God. So I don't know where he's getting that from. There's nothing about that says that the Toshav basically the tenant farmer has to be worshiping the same God as them. I just know that with the resident aliens, they had to, if they wanted to participate, now they could convert, and they could convert to that religion, and they could also get themselves circumcised and their slaves circumcised in order to participate in certain Jewish customs, but I don't even think, if I remember correctly, a Toshav could circumcise their slaves so that their slaves could basically partake in like certain Hebrew rituals, but they themselves were not required to get circumcised, but they still couldn't partake in it, but they could let their slaves do it or something like that. I can't remember where that's found, but maybe if Dr. Josh is here, maybe he could correct me on it. Either way, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm kind of right. Again, I'm not going to do anything real deep here. This is not even a 9-minute video. But like I said, when I first heard this thing about Deuteronomy 20, I went, that doesn't sound right. So
foreigner does convert to a Yahweh worship Judaism, they would not be considered Israelite, or they'd still be considered foreigner.
Meaning they're given the status of an Israelite, but he's not an Israelite. Meaning,
okay, got it.
As if he's a
no, they don't. No, they don't. I don't see where he's getting that. They wouldn't get the status of an Israelite, because if they got the status of an Israelite, that would mean they'd be able to hold land, inherited land, and land that was basically given to the Israelites as an inheritance. And then they would be able to basically hold that land, and then they would fall under the same provisions as the Jubilee. But they couldn't. They couldn't hold any of the land in perpetuity. No foreigner could, because it was allotted to the native-born Israelites, not ones that were just simply accepted because they practiced the same religious rituals.
Just Israelites.
Okay.
And there's nothing to say that any of the Toshavs, any of the foreigners, had to necessarily participate in those religious practices to reside amongst the Israelites.
You see it? So that means the same law applies, right? Now, so reread it. Leviticus 19, 33, 34.
33. When a foreigner sojourns with you in your land, you will not do him wrong. The foreigner who dwells with you shall be to you as one born among you, and you shall love him as yourself, for you are foreigners in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God.
Okay, so you caught it? How are they to be treated?
As equal, as
that means the same law, right?
Same law.
So that
no, not 100% there. So he's falling into this kind of trap, like basically everybody can basically become like a native-born Israelite. No. That kind of goes to the idea that the theocracy that is the Israelite nation is kind of like a church, and anybody who's coming in to the church can become members of the church. It's basically like becoming a church member. And so once you're a church member, you get all the benefits of being a church member. I don't know where this particular interpretation came from, but to me it just seems kind of shaky. I've heard Praise has stressed it. I think Veckel has stressed it, and I know Jill has stressed it. It kind of goes along the lines of like this idea that like Israel was like an ancient Near East model for modern day USA. That once you're a citizen, then you're covered under the same laws as a native-born citizen.
So that means in Exodus 21, if you have a Hebrew servant, he has to be set free in the 7th year, right?
7th year. Makes sense.
So then what happens to them?
So if they don't convert, then they're perpetual slaves. But if they do convert, then they're free.
No. There's nothing about, I don't know where he's getting that from, that if they don't convert to the religion.
Right? Because then they can't spread their evil anymore. So you're actually preventing moral anarchy and decay. That's if the Israelites were faithful. But sadly, they were corrupt too. That's why God did to them what he did to the nations. But in a hypothetical, theoretical situation, right?
Yes.
That means you'll have no more bestiality, no more incest, no more infanticide, sacrificing children, no more murder,
Yeah, but they did that with, but they were among the Midianites, and nothing happened to the Midianites. It only happened to the Israelites. 1 second. Got another vehicle here. Okay, I'm back.
If they were to live up to the commands of God, which they didn't, because that's why God kept punishing them. So he shows how fair he is. He even says, I'll do to you what I did to the nations. But here it says, if they live among you in the context of, I want to now worship Yahweh. I don't want to worship.
I don't know where he's getting that from. That's why I was hoping Dr. Josh would hang around. I don't know if Dr. Josh is still here or not. I was going to ask Dr. Josh about that because I remember something about in Leviticus, there's something being about like a foreigner. The foreigners residing amongst them didn't have to be circumcised. Give me 1 second. He's a little. Like I said, this was impromptu. I only watched like the first 30 seconds, saw that part, listened to that part, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I'll cover this one. And since it's late, well, early for me, whatever you want to call it, figured I'd just cover it here at work.
Worship the gods and goddesses. Now they are an Israelite in status. Same law applies. So if a Hebrew servant will not.
No, I don't think they become an Israelite, man. I don't. Yeah.
Remain a perpetual slave, neither will they. You're going to see them and view them the same way. Now here's another one. Go to Deuteronomy 10, 18 to 19. You guys seeing the.
This guy's horrible. Yeah, it's Exodus 12:48. If a stranger shall sojourn with you and keep the Passover to the Lord, let all of his males be circumcised. I don't see how that implies a religious assimilation to be required for full inclusion. And I don't know how you could have full inclusion because Tashabs could still sell themselves as slaves, as permanent slaves, and their kin to Israelites as permanent slaves. They couldn't even hold land. Yeah, because right, Leviticus 19:33 through 34 is about when a stranger sojourns with you in your land, you shall not do him wrong. You shall treat the stranger who sojourns with you as the native among you, and you shall love him as yourself. Yeah, that doesn't necessarily require temple access or inheritance rights, which I don't think any inheritance rights would fall to any foreigner. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, that's one of those things. That's one of those things I'm not sure of. But it doesn't seem like in order for them to be considered, to be given, be treated hospitably in any kind of way by the Israelites, that they had to convert to that religion.
Seeing the logic here? Deuteronomy 10, 18 to 19. So
Deuteronomy 10, which I love it when they go around to different. Oh, Deuteronomy 10, 18 through 19. Yeah. Okay. So he's going to use the essence of the law. So now, O Israel, when the Lord. Okay. So, So now, Israel, what does the Lord your God require of you? Only to fear the Lord your God and walk in his ways, to love him, to serve the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, and to keep the commandments of the Lord and his decrees that I'm commanding you today for your own well-being. Although heaven and heaven of heavens belong to the Lord your God, the earth with all that's in it, yet the Lord set his heart in love on your ancestors alone and chose you, their descendants after them, out of the peoples, as it is today. Circumcise them, the foreskin of your heart, and do not stubborn any longer. For the Lord your God is God of gods and Lord of lords, the great God, mighty and awesome, blah, 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 who executes justice for the orphan and the widow, and who loves the strangers, providing them food and clothing. You shall also love the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. You shall fear the Lord your God. Yeah, but it doesn't say anything about loving the stranger because they've become one of you. I think that's a bit of a stretch.
So even in Deuteronomy 10, you have in Leviticus 19, the anticipation in the New Testament that Gentiles will be given the status of an Israelite and treated as an Israelite. You get it?
No, I'm not seeing that in Deuteronomy 10.
It's there in the Old Testament, waiting for the fullness of that revelation in the New Testament. Now, Deuteronomy 10, 18 to 19.
He executes the judgment of the orphan and the widow and loves the foreigner.
He loves who?
The foreigner, giving him food and clothing. Therefore, love the foreigner, for you are foreigners in the land of Egypt.
So wait, God loves.
That doesn't actually mean that by loving them you would give them full inclusion. And you're talking about two different holiness codes here, Leviticus and Deuteronomy. So he is appealing to univocality, obviously, because he just talked about how, this is all being set up and everything because it all comes to fruition in the New Testament because these are Gentiles, right? And you see what happens to Gentiles. Gentiles become Christians.
God loves the foreigner, the non-Israelite?
Yes.
And he's telling you better love him too?
Yes.
In other words, God is saying, I'm not a tribal God who loves you more than other nations. I love the nations just like I love you. So you better love them because I love them.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Now let me show you.
Now I still don't know. So there's a problem here because he just said. So first of all, he said you take the slaves, you make them slaves, so that you basically stop them from doing all this evil stuff, which he didn't explain where that was really at in the Bible. And it seemed to me that when he was talking about that, he was saying that, well, yeah, these Canaanites, these Hittites, these people that were listed in the land of Canaan that the Israelites are commanded to conquer, they become slaves. They become slaves to Israel so that they stop doing these horrendous things. But that's not what Deuteronomy 20 says. They're all to be annihilated. The ones that can become slaves, that can become forced labor, are other cities, other distant cities that Israel just goes to attack, that are not necessarily of the land of Canaan. So somehow he restricted his interpretation of Deuteronomy 20 to basically be like, well, hold on a second. The Israelites are only commanded to conquer the land of Canaan, the people in the land of Canaan. And so by doing so, those people become slaves because why? They're wicked evildoers, and by taking them as slaves, it keeps them from doing evil things. That's not what Deuteronomy 20 says about those people. They are to be completely annihilated. Earlier, the other cities that the Israelites could go and attack, which he said, well, it's just like if the Babylonians and the Assyrians were going to go attack them, they got to defend themselves. That's, again, not what it says in Deuteronomy 20, because it says when the Israelites approach a city to make war, they are to offer peace. Is he now implying that if Assyria or Babylon were to come and just go, they were coming to attack the Israelites, that the Israelites would approach them and then offer them terms of peace? So there's a lot of problems with his reading.
Let me show you how just God is. Look how just he is, guys. Go to Ezekiel 47, 22 to 23.
It shall come to pass that you shall divide it by lot for an inheritance among yourselves and among the aliens who sojourn among you.
Wait, the aliens, the non-Israelites?
Non-Israelites, yes.
Now watch, God is
among you, among yourselves.
40.
Yeah.
Now let me show you how just God is.
Let me show you how just God is. Let me sell this to you.
Look how just he is, guys. Go to Ezekiel 47.
Uh,
22 to 23.
It shall come to.
let me see. Okay. The new boundaries of the land. Thus says the Lord God, these are the boundaries by which you shall divide the land for inheritance among the 12 tribes of Israel. Joseph shall have 2 portions. You shall divide it equally. I swear to give it to your ancestors, and this land shall fall to you as your inheritance. This shall be the boundary of the land. On the north side, from the great sea by the way of Hethlon to Lebo Hamath, and on to Zedad, which lies, Damascus, the border of Hamath, as far as so the boundary shall run from the sea to Hazar Enan, and then to the north to the border of Damascus. Okay, without a map, I really don't know how to make much sense of this. It's just reading names. This shall be the north side. On the east side, between Haran and Damascus, along the Jordan between Gilead and the land of Israel, to the eastern sea, and as far as Tamar, this shall be the east side. And then it has on the south side, it shall run from Tamar as far as the waters of Meribeth Kadesh, from there along the Wadi of Egypt to the great sea. This shall be the south side. And on the west side, the great sea shall be a boundary to a point opposite Leba Hamath. This shall be the west side. So you shall divide this land among you according to the tribes of Israel. You shall allot it as an inheritance for yourselves and for the aliens who reside among you and have fathered children among you. They shall be you as native born of Israel with you. They shall be allotted an inheritance among the tribes of Israel. And whatever tribe aliens reside, there you shall assign them their inheritance, says the Lord God. Okay, but this... But this looks like it's after... Yeah, I'm not sure. He's mixing a bunch of stuff around. Yeah. I haven't read much. I have not read Ezekiel in a long time, so I really don't know.
To pass that you shall divide it by lot for an inheritance among yourselves and among the aliens who sojourn among you.
Wait, the aliens, the non-Israelites?
Non-Israelites, yes.
Now watch, God is saying, in the ideal Israel, the non-Israelites, aliens, will have a portion of the land allotted to them. Read it.
Who sojourn, the aliens who sojourn among you, who shall bear sons among you, and they shall be to you as born in the country among the sons of Israel.
Again, they'll be treated as Israelites?
Yes.
So you better not look down upon him because he's a Syrian Babylonian. No, view him as an Israelite. Give him the same rights, and he's going to have the same inheritance as you. Keep reading.
They shall have inheritance with you among the tribes of Israel.
This still doesn't make any... I don't know how that drives the point home. Yeah, there's a lot of context here that's probably being screwed up here. Yeah, I'm not going to dive into that. That's going to be for a later. That'll be for a later time. Not probably still won't do it. Again, this still doesn't work for his whatever his narrative was from before. because what he was saying before didn't make any sense, because he's already basically said, oh yeah, they could have slaves. They definitely could have slaves, because keeping those people, those conquered people as slaves, keeps them from sinning. But the problem is that was a misreading of the text, because the people that they were going to conquer, the land of Canaan, they were to eliminate them completely. None of them were to survive. So that's already a problem. As for the equal treatment thing, the problem is looking at it from looking at what happens in Leviticus, especially 25, 44 through 46. And then there's the idea that historically, none of these people could have, none of the foreigners could have land. They couldn't own any land. But Ezekiel 47, it seems like, oh, okay, there's this apportioned, there's this land that's being divided up amongst the Israelites and the foreigners that are amongst them. But Ezekiel, chronologically, is a lot further along than Deuteronomy, Exodus, and Leviticus. So I'm not sure how to square that at all. Either way, it still says in Leviticus 25, 44 through 46, that the foreigners could be owned as slaves, that they could purchase from amongst their own, from the nations around them, and from those, and from the foreigners that reside amongst them, they could purchase them as slaves. And they could keep them permanently and pass them on as an inheritance. But Israelites could not. So they still made that distinction, even though Teshavs were given considerations, right? They were to be treated with love and respect and all that kind of stuff. When it came to slavery, though, that condition, if a Teshav were to end up as selling themselves or selling one of their family members to an Israelite, that condition of slavery was not as ideal as it would be for an Israelite. Because for an Israelite, they were told they were not to be treated as slaves, but to be treated as hired workers. And then my question is being treated or given, if it says they're to be treated as hired workers, I've heard some people say, well, since it says they're being treated as hired workers, then they're being paid. Well, is that really what they mean by being treated as a hired worker? Is that they're to be paid? Or is it they're to be considered as like a hired worker? So they're not getting paid because they're working to pay off a debt, but they're given the same considerations as a hired worker or as a shakir.
Wow. Can you get any more fair than this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't make human beings that way. Don't make society like that.
Yeah.
So you see the wisdom, the logic, right?
Yes.
No. If you're God, why did you create human beings with the ability to even do this kind of wickedness? And that's the thing. Everybody that's going to heaven supposedly isn't supposed to be able to commit this kind of wickedness, right? All the wicked people are supposed to go to hell, unless he's like one of these Christians that thinks that if you're in heaven, yeah, you could do something wicked, but you're not going to want to. Which doesn't make any sense, because why wasn't, again, that goes back to that whole kind of idea that God is like the thing that is making all of reality what it is, and he instantiates it and he sustains it. And then you get into the question about, well, in the ontology, in the categories of what consists of reality, is hell and heaven in that same category of reality? I'm just trying to figure this one out. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I really don't have anything else. I was just going to do a quick 1 hour video on that and go from there, because why not? And I have questions about it still. Like I said, it's impromptu. So thanks for joining me. There was only a whole whopping 3, maybe 4 people here, but thanks for joining me this morning. See ya.